Hello ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Regal podcast. I'm your host, Jordan Lewis, and today I'm joined by Zoe Knight. So, first of all, good morning Zoe, and welcome to the podcast.
Good morning, Jordan. Thank you very much for having me here.
Thank you for coming. And for everybody listening, everybody watching, would you like to give a quick introduction to who you are, what you do, what sort of things you're interested in?
Sure. So my name is Zoe Knight. I'm a life and business coach, and I specifically work supporting creative business owners that have felt stuck, have lost their passion, their energy for their business, and I help them to get unstuck, get them clear on what they want and moving forward, making confident decisions. And that's what I'm passionate about as well. I'm really passionate about people living a life that they are passionate about, and whatever that is, and the freedom to do that without guilt. So yeah, that's me.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know that for a lot of business owners, myself included, like there's a lot of things in the way, a lot of blocks that do stop you from reaching your potential, reaching your levels of success that you kind of deserve and should be hitting. So I'm kind of curious then, how did you discover these blocks in your own life firstly? And then secondly, how did you develop this into a career, something that you could help other people with?
Sure. So discovering it in my own life, and I think that's really key when you're a coach. You have to have done that work yourself to be able to help other people explore those things. And it all boils down to awareness, because until you have that awareness about something, you can't do anything about it because you're unaware. So it's becoming aware of your actions, of your inactions, what you're resisting, what you're not doing, and then really digging down with that and exploring, like asking questions. What is it about that I'm resisting? Why am I doing that? So it's a lot of self-exploration. So yeah, I've done that with myself, and when you then feel the impact of that and experience the benefits of that, it kind of it confirms that, you know, this stuff works, this can help. And so yeah, so understanding that and I guess living that experience myself is what helps me be able to help other people. But I can only help other people when they're ready for that. You know, they've got to do the work, I can't do that work for them. But, you know, most of the time when people are coming for help, it's because they are starting to get that awareness, they're realising that something's not quite right, and so they're ready to kind of take that first step on that journey.
Yeah, so getting in touch with you is almost like a good indicator that actually this person is ready to start making positive action towards their goals. Yeah,
absolutely. And I'm one of those coaches. I'm very non-directive, so the clients that come to me, they come to me when they're ready. And I think that's really key. They've reached out, they've said, you know, I want to work with you. And when, you know, in my industry, it's saturated, and lots of people have lots of different ways, different techniques, different approaches. But going up to people and saying, you know, oh, I can help you, let me help you, blah, da, 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 it doesn't feel right to me, because yes, they absolutely probably can help that person, but if that person isn't in that position of being ready for the help, then it's not going to work anyway. So I prefer to allow people to just come to me when they're ready, and it makes the whole process a lot easier.
So other than obviously getting in touch with you and sort of telling you that they're ready, what are the kind of key signals you look out for in somebody that says, right, this person is actually ready to become more self-aware, to take these positive steps, somebody that is actually going to be coachable?
Honesty. I really look for honesty in my clients, and you know, I ask them that I expect honesty, and I see that in them trying to go there with the questions that I ask them. So I don't know comes up a lot when I'm asking a question. It's like I don't know, and I always say to my clients, I don't accept I don't knows, because it's not thinking and going there. You know, it's just it's a resistance to the question, basically. So honesty shows me that they're willing to go, you know, that they're ready, and vulnerability as well, because actually it's deep, important stuff. The stuff that are keeping us stuck, a lot of the time, that is, you know, that's wiring and you know, beliefs that have been imprinted on us as children and that we've been living with as a rule for years and years and years and years and years. And it's vulnerable to uncover some of that stuff. And if they're going to go there, and you know, I honour and respect that, and it's I have a very safe space for them doing that. Obviously, when they're working with a coach, whoever that is, it should be 100% confidential. So it is a safe space for them to be able to do that. And yeah, so that's another sign for me that they're ready.
Yeah, absolutely. And one thing that you kind of touched on is that for most people, it's a very, very daunting thing to go where you don't want to go, basically. You know, everybody has these problems in their life or something that's holding them back. And even if they know it, they're still not quite willing to actually venture into the unknown and try and tackle this big elephant that's sort of holding them back. Because it is hard, it is scary, and it is going to, you know, it's going to cause pain and problems at the end of the day. But that's kind of the lock that you need to break to be able to then push through to achieving success in whatever you do. So I'm kind of curious, how do you help somebody put themselves into a position where they are willing and ready to venture into the unknown, into the chaos, to try and figure out how to get through to the next part of their success?
I think the way that I help people do that, and as I say, I'm not approaching people telling them that I can help them, because the work comes from them. The way I show them that I can help them is through my messages, is through you know, me being visible and sharing that I understand, that I understand where they're at, that I, you know, can relate to that I see them there, but that I also see and show how I can help them get out of that. So I think it's sharing my knowledge and expertise around how that doesn't have to be the case. It's meeting people where they are, but also shining a light to where they could be. That's how I show that I can help people. Because as I said,
absolutely.
I'm very, very, you know, I can't tell anybody that they're ready, that they're going to get there, but I believe that anybody can get there as long as they're prepared to do that work. And as you said, like, it's a scary thing to look back at some of that stuff. You know, one of my clients said to me, she gave them wonderful reviews, but she was like, "You make me feel very uncomfortable, but in a very safe way." She was like, "But some of the stuff you make me talk about is uncomfortable, but I feel that I'm okay to do that. But it's like unlocking the jailer's door when I do that," which I just thought was lovely. She's got a very beautiful way. She uses lots of metaphors. She's very beautiful in her language, and I thought it is a bit like that. And when I went into coaching, you know, I think some people get confused with the difference between coaching and counselling and therapy and that kind of thing. And the way I explain it is that coaching is looking at where you are now and looking forward at where you want to be and how we're going to get you there. Counselling and therapy is looking at where you are now and looking at the past and what's happened to get you where you are. And there is a crossover, because a lot of the time the stuff that's stopping you from getting where you want to be is some of the stuff from the past, but the difference is that we don't dwell there. Like, it doesn't have to be really painful stuff. I would say that is more therapy. If you want to sit there and process all of that stuff, that's more therapy based. Coaching is we can look at that, we can understand what your block is, and we can let that go. It doesn't need to be really painful. So yeah, that's the difference. We do go there, it is uncomfortable, but I also build that, you know, future focus, the positives, you know, what we're looking to achieve, how we're going to do that, and then the blocks that come up along the way, you know, we work with that, we let that go.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think I absolutely love your point on how you make your clients feel uncomfortable, because I mean, one of my favourite quotes, "Comfort is the enemy of progress." It just is true. You need to feel at least a little bit uncomfortable to be able to move forward in anything. Like I said, it's like venturing into the unknown, venturing into chaos. That is how you progress. That is how you adapt, change, overcome problems that you're currently in. Because if you're stuck in this system that you've been stuck in for the last 15, 20 years, you're not going to be able to innovate within that space. And I think it's such an important move for you to, as an external force, to make them feel a little bit uncomfortable. Not so uncomfortable that they fall off the rails, but a little bit uncomfortable, just to sort of prompt them to move out of that comfort zone, to then be able to innovate, to be able to adapt, and to be able to change their life.
Yeah. And when they do that, that comfort zone grows. So, that's all the growth, like you say, is outside of our comfort zone. And so, but when they do that thing, you do the thing outside there, and then you go back to your comfort zone, and then it grows, and then more things are within your comfort zone. So you can continuously expand, but you have to step outside of that to start off with.
Yeah, absolutely. And I feel like, well, for me personally anyway, and you'll have to tell me if your clients experience something similar, but when I've kind of stepped way out of my comfort zone for one thing, it becomes marginally easier for me to step outside of my comfort zone in something else. So whether it's learning a skill, or it's putting myself in a social situation that I wouldn't normally be in, or it's trying to do something I've just never done before, if I've kind of gone way out of my comfort zone in one of those areas, then trying to go out of my areas in learning another new skill just becomes that little bit easier, that little bit more, well, I've done this before, I haven't died, I know what I'm doing, and then you can kind of just get on with it.
Yeah. I think it totally depends on the individual. If they can do that reflection and say to themselves, okay, I've done this before and I didn't die and it wasn't too bad, and look, that is now comfortable. If they can do that reflection, then they can take that forward into that next step. If they use the same stories every time and aren't having that awareness and that learning, then it's still just as scary. But I think most people, the more they do it, the easier it becomes. It's like anything. It's like building a habit, isn't it? The more you do it, the quicker you can catch it, the easier it becomes, until it is a habit. So, I think the more I can help people do the thing, and take that time to self-reflect as well, then they do get there with the other things easier. There's sometimes you have to go back over it and back over it for each thing.
Yeah, unfortunately that's just how it is, but obviously, it's just continually keep going at it, even if you're, seeing failure after failure. That's kind of how you eventually do push through, so, credit to you for doing that.
And failure, I don't have a problem with failure at all. I think all failure is a lesson. That's how you, it's, okay, that bit doesn't work, which means I'm one step closer to knowing what does work, because there's one lesson that I'm going to try anymore. Like, failures is lessons. I love failure. I don't have a problem with that word at all.
Yeah, me too. Exactly the same. I quite like the analogy of, let's say you're a salesman and you have to go through an entire hotel suite of 100 doors to try and get one sale. If you knock on a door and get rejected from the first door, that means you're actually just a door closer to finding that person that is going to buy from you. And, obviously each time you're going through the doors, getting rejected, you are just one door closer to that one successful door. Or if you kind of replace that analogy with business ideas, let's say you have to have 100 business ideas and only the 100th will actually be successful. Okay, well, every time you try a business idea and fail, you're actually a step closer to that one that will work, and that is the power of failure, I feel.
You'll hear it, the success stories of all the big, huge people. They tried so many things. Thomas Edison with the light bulb, didn't he have thousands of attempts at that before he found this magical thing? And what's his name? Sergeant someone, the KFC guy. He was...
Colonel... Is it Colonel Sanders?
I think so, or something like that, yeah. I'm terrible with remembering names. But, he...
Sergeant Chicken.
Mr. KFC, man. That wasn't... he knocked on so many doors and that, selling it from his homemade stuff before. And it's in every single country. It's a $1 billion business now. So I think that's, really... It's a great analogy, and it's really great to remember. Try looking at it from that perspective instead. It's one step closer rather than failure.
Yeah, absolutely. And now I'm curious then, what do you think is that kind of big factor that's holding people back from viewing failure in that way? Because right now, a lot of people watching this even will be sort of viewing failure as this big obstacle, this thing that's stopping them, it's holding them back, and it's quite daunting and emotionally draining. So what do you feel is that big blocker that if people can just get over that, then they kind of view failure in a different way, and they can kind of progress in whatever domain they want to?
I think it's habit. It's a habit if people have got into looking at things that way, because that's what they've always done. Perhaps they're surrounded by people that look at things that way, and so they've taken that upon themselves, and that's how we look at things. But it is a choice, and it's not a popular thing that I say, but everything that we do is a choice. The way you look at things, the way you choose to react to things, the way you handle situations, the way you approach something, like, it's always a choice. And people don't like that. But actually, when you become responsible for all of those things, if you're responsible for your reactions, rather than blaming other people, if you're responsible, it means you're responsible for changing it as well. That means you are in control of that. And people, as a human species, we like to have control over things. So, and I know, people will tell me, but I'm not in control of how I respond. Like, it's an automatic thing. I can't choose how I see something. You absolutely can. You can choose, you can change whatever you want, or any belief that you have. And some people struggle with that, like, I can't change a belief, it's a belief. I believe it to be true. Like, a belief is something that you believe to be true without any evidence for it. You can change that. It's that simple. It's not necessarily that easy. It takes time. It starts with awareness. As I said, like, everything for me starts with awareness. Becoming aware of the thought that you're thinking, or as you're about to react to something, if you can catch it at that moment, that's where you have the choice. So when you're looking at failure and you're thinking, I'm useless, I knew I was going to fail, I shouldn't have tried it, everyone's going to think I'm stupid, blah blah blah, if that's your natural thought process, if you're doing that without being aware, then no, you can't do anything about it. But if you can catch it, then you have that opportunity to say, hold on a minute, these are just thoughts, and I would like, how else can I see it? So ask yourself a question, how else could I view this? How might somebody that I really look up to and respect, how might they view it? Some successful business person, if they're listening to this, they can think, okay, so what were they saying about that? Okay, that's one step, that's something I know doesn't work anymore. Or next time I could try something different, or I can go and get some learning so I feel more confident about doing that thing. How can I make it better next time? But you have to be able to catch yourself doing it. And you see, the problem, Jordan, is that we are only about 5% consciously aware of the stuff that we do. 95% of everything that we do is run by our subconscious minds. And that's like, the computer just doing everything in the background. Only 5% is us typing stuff in and putting programming in. The rest of it is the programs that are already in there running it. So if we consciously tell ourselves something like, especially around beliefs, I believe that I'm a super duper confident person doing a Facebook Live and putting myself out there. But if we've been telling ourselves for, 20 odd years that actually we're really shy and we hate doing that and we're really embarrassed, that's the thought that's going to win, because it's 95% in there. So it takes that awareness to start changing it and start doing something about it. And we absolutely can change it, but it does take effort. And I think for a large part of people, it's not always worth the effort. There's a secondary gain from staying where you are. So the people that make those really big changes, they're determined, they're committed, they really, really want it. And I'm not saying that people don't want the thing that they want. Of course they want the thing that they want. But are they prepared to do all of that hard work and that growing of your comfort zone, getting outside your comfort zone first to do that growth? And not everybody is. And that's fine. There's no judgment there. There is if somebody wants to stay in their comfort zone for their entire life, cool. They're comfortable, they're safe, that's good. That's their journey. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely, and I think that's a very important point. It is very individual to each person. Not everybody should be or can be that person who's constantly out of their comfort zone, constantly into chaos, constantly into the unknown. There are those people that just do live their lives in comfort, and again, like you said, that's absolutely fine. That is their life, that is their choice. If they are ever in a position where they want to go outside their comfort zone, then people like you are here to actually then help them through that journey. Yeah. But if they don't want to, again, their life, that's their choice.
Exactly, yeah. And if they want to, I can understand people. I'm one of those people that I love learning. I actually really enjoy change. I'm a bit of a weirdo. I love change. I know a lot of people find change uncomfortable because it's the unknown, but I like variety and it excites me and all that kind of thing. And so I'm always going to be progressing, and because I have that awareness about the fact that I need to do uncomfortable things to be able to grow, then, you know, I get that stuff. You know, my ex-husband was very different. He liked his comfort zone. You know, he's worked for the same person all of his life. He'd lived in the same place all of his life. He didn't like going new places on holiday. You know, we were very different people, which is probably what, you know, we were together for a long time, got 2 beautiful children, we still get on really well, everything's fine, but we grew apart because that became more apparent the older we got, that we wanted different things out of life. But there was, you know, I think if you like to be in your comfort zone, and actually being outside of that is very stressful, and you don't have the tools to manage that overwhelm, then there isn't any point in stretching that. Like, you can get the tools, you can get the help, you know, people like me, or books, or whatever you want, if you want to. But if you're just doing that, you know, because you feel that you should, like, should, for me, I hate the word should. Nobody should do something. It's like, feel like I ought to, but don't want to. And that's taking away your choice, your freedom. Like, you choose. I choose that I want to get uncomfortable and grow. I choose that I want to stay here and feel safe. And that's fine, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. You mentioned earlier, actually, about how a lot of people they kind of find the statement that you choose your beliefs, you choose your, you know, what you do, etc., quite a controversial statement. I'm actually curious, why do you think that is? Why are people so opposed to this idea, even though they do like to be in control for the most part?
Because it feels so hardwired, I think. The ones that we have, you know, sort of for the first 7 years of our lives, that's when we learn everything and we take it on. And those beliefs that we wire in then, they feel hardwired. They're not hardwired. But they just feel like they are a part of us. And as humans, we like to identify with things. You know, I don't particularly like labels. Some people like labels and find them helpful. Some people don't. But actually, we all label things because, you know, that's how we, you know, we name something. We label it, we associate, and then we associate ourselves with that and with that. And actually, I mean, I could go off on one down here. But, you know, I'm a mum or I'm a wife. Okay, but who were you before you were those things? Oh, well, I'm, you know, my name is Zoe. But what if you weren't called Zoe? Like, who are you? And it's a really difficult question to explore. If you remove all of those things, like, who is that person that's just having that conversation? So our body is just, it's like a vessel, isn't it, for this life, for us to do things. But the body isn't the thing that's having all of those thoughts and stories in our heads. And so who is that? And we put all of these labels, and it's really difficult to get away from that. So I think people struggle with the beliefs because they're so... we think that is who we are and that it means something about us. And so if we take that away, then who are we? But actually, that means is you can be whoever you want to be. All of those people that you look up to and admire and think, oh, I wish I could be like that, you can be like that. You can emulate whatever you want, and you know, you can't see something in someone else if that isn't in there within you as well, because otherwise you wouldn't be able to recognise it. So what you see and admire in other people, you have that within you. It also means what you see and dislike in other people, that's somewhere in you as well. It's really great for reflection. It's like, oh, because if you didn't recognise it, you wouldn't be able to associate with that thing. So I think, but yeah, we used to believe that, you know, we are what we are. You know, that kind of very fixed mindset that, you know, oh, it's in my genes, or oh, I'm just like my mum or my dad. That's in my nature. I can't change that. And the hardwiredness, when I'm talking about that, like literally in our brains, there's all those, you know, neural pathways, and we thought that once that was set, that was it. It wasn't until about the 1960s where, you know, research happened and people realised that actually that wiring isn't hardwired, it's soft-wired. And it can feel really set, especially if it's a belief that you have, you know, thought and repeated and, you know, compacted. Then it's a pretty solid belief in there. But we can change that. So I kind of explain that, like, you know, imagine that you, you know, back in the old days, and you live out in kind of a little village or a hamlet or something, and you need to take your materials to the market in the town. And so everybody is going that way, trampling this road, and it becomes a very firm, solid road that everybody is using. And that's like this belief that you have. You've compacted and solidified that belief, so it feels so strong. If somebody, you know, back then from that village noticed a kind of another little route and decided, I'm going to take that because I think it's quicker, and they realised actually it was much quicker to get to the market that way, and they started going that way, and then they told everyone, and then people started joining them, then that one is going to become, the more, because it's more used, the more I can't think what the word is, but, you know, the stronger path, the clearer path. And as long, if they stop using the other one, so if you can do both, you're going to keep them both strong. But if that old path, you know, it took a longer time and this one is just as well used now, might as well go this one, it serves me better. If the other one stops being used, that's going to become overgrown. And that's what happens in our brain. If we can stop using that old belief, that thought, and it's very much about our thought patterns, because our brain, it doesn't know what's real or what's not, it just believes what we tell it, which is why beliefs can feel like they are truth without evidence. If we can stop using that one and replace it with a better serving one, eventually it will be pruned away. It's called synaptogenesis. Every night our brain goes off and, you know, is looking for new neural pathways, but anything that isn't being used, it will just prune it away because it's pointless. It's just like regenerating. So yes, it's science, it can be rewired, it is soft wiring there, but that's why I think people struggle with saying you can't choose your belief. That is true, because it feels like it's such a strong belief, they've repeated it so often, it doesn't feel like they can change it. And you can imagine building that new path. If the track has been used for, you know, 20, 30, 40 years, it's going to take some work.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think people instantly equate hard work and difficulty and challenge with wrong or bad or like unnatural. But like you said, the truth is the brain is extremely plastic. It can be changed within the space of a year or even a few months, from one belief system, one core set of values to an entirely different set. It's just a case of being willing to, like you said, do that work and actually create that new path to the market, basically.
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely. And one thing that you touched on earlier is obviously your identity, who you are, and essentially what that means. So I'm kind of curious, because I know there's a ton of different definitions, but to you, what actually makes up a person in who they are?
So I'm in a place of really exploring this at the moment, and so I find it fascinating. From my own perspective and set of beliefs, which are just beliefs, but everybody is energy. Like everything we're made up of is energy. Every cell, every atom in our body is energy, and so we're actually all connected as well. So I look at everybody as the same, and then it's the beauty in that is what we then do with that and who we decide to be by the labels that we put on ourselves, by the identities, by our life experiences, but how we choose that to shape us. Like everybody, you know, you can have people experience the exact same event and reflect on it differently, allow it to shape them differently, and I think that's such a beautiful thing. Remind me of the question, because I know I struggle with this. What am I going to try and answer?
Okay. It's a pretty heavy question, to be fair. I basically just asked, what do you think makes up somebody's identity? So obviously you talked about stripping away their beliefs, stripping away what they do, stripping away essentially what they are. Like you used the example of a mother. If you strip that away, what is a person, and I want to know what you think a person is beneath all of that.
So the thing is, I think, so if, as I was sort of touched on earlier, if you take all of that away, you know, and away the identities that we have, the body that we're in, who's that voice, who's the creative energy in there that's getting us to do things and create things in this lovely world and all the things that humankind have done, like, who is that? It's, for me, it's and again, just belief, but it's this oneness, this energy, this innate force, this being, this whatever, you know, some people might call that God, but I think it's very difficult as a human, having a human experience, to sit in that place. So there's a book that I read that I think it's really helped me to look at all of this stuff. So there are a few people, Eckhart Tolle is The Power of Now, one of those, who talks very much about, you know, all we have is now and who we are for that. But the book that I read was called The Untethered Soul by Michael Singer, and it talks about sitting in your seat of consciousness. And when we are, you know, as humans, you know, getting stuck and not being able to let go of stuff and all of that, we're sitting in the seat of despair. And when he's talking about this, I literally have to imagine myself, like, stepping outside of my body to sit in the seat of consciousness and just observe what is going on, like, especially with the storytelling. As humans, we're so good at storytelling. You know, we're either telling ourselves stories about the future, you know, what might happen, the what ifs, the oh my gods, and what if they do this, and which hasn't happened yet, like, that's in the future. Or we're, like, ruminating on the past and storytelling about that, well, that's been and gone, and so we're not letting that go, we're not letting that experience flow through us. We're very rarely, like, in this present moment, and so I try and imagine stepping back, but I don't think I finished my sentence. What I was trying to say is, as a human, we're having human experiences, and actually it's really difficult to not have a human experiences, to not identify with things like, who am I without my name? Who am I without saying I'm this and that? And it's one of those questions that there isn't really an answer to. We're never going to have a definitive answer, I think, partly because in this human form we can't necessarily comprehend that. Like, when you read so many stories from people that have had, you know, near-death experiences or have died and come back, like, there are so many, there are hundreds of thousands of these people's stories, and there are so many similarities to them, but we can't compute that, like, what some of their experiences doesn't transmute into a human experience, I don't think. So trying to understand who we are without all of those labels, I think we get glimpses of that, and we can, like, try and consciously have an understanding of that, and the more you experience being in that place with no resistance and, you know, complete freedom of all of that, is wonderful, and maybe you get more and more of that. And some people will tell you, like Michael Singer will say, you can live in that place all the time. I think for the majority of people it's hard to be there all the time, because we are submersed in, like, human life. We have so much distractions going on around us all the time that keep us here, but I think that's fine. Like, we're supposed to be having a human experience. You know, I'm not saying it's bad to have labels and identities, because we're human. I think that we don't need to have them, and if they're running your life and your life isn't the way you want it to be, then you do have a choice to change that if you want to. And you know, so they're not fixed things that we need to have. They can be changed if you want to. But if you like your identity, if that makes you feel good, then great. You know. So
yeah, absolutely.
Did that answer?
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, it did. Wonderfully, thank you. And I was going to say, actually, I've grappled with this quite a lot in my own life. So for the last kind of few years, I was very, very, very strongly atheist. In fact, I actively went out of my way to discredit religion and spirituality and basically anything non-atheist, pretty much. And in the sort of the last few months, I've actually moved more towards religion, and I'm actually now Christian. And the thing that's kind of I've been grappling with since then is a lot of Christians, obviously, when they're kind of reading the Bible or they're trying to live their life, they will basically say, okay, well, I do this because the Bible says so, or because because God says so, or because this is what my religion says is the right answer. And I've kind of grappled with that because there's elements of the Bible in any religion, but obviously for me specifically with the Christian Bible, there's elements within that I don't necessarily agree with, and I kind of have to remind myself, well, actually, religion generally and Christianity are simply ways of living life, and I have chosen to follow the Christian way of living life because I believe that it gives me it serves me the best, it gives me the best chance of success in whatever domain that is to me. And so if I find elements of that aren't serving me or aren't serving my purpose, then I kind of should be able to critique that and sort of adjust that to what I need from it. And like I kind of said, like with me identifying as a Christian, I was constantly feeling torn between trying to do what was genuinely the best for my life and then trying to do something purely because the Bible says so. And I think that's something that a lot of more aware religious people have to contend with. You have to find that balance between just following the book by the letter and actually maybe some of this is outdated, or maybe some of it just doesn't apply to your specific situation. And that's kind of, I take a very kind of critical, more liberal view on the Bible though, so.
Yeah. Which personally I think is the perfect way to be about it, because, finding something that you align with is brilliant. But is something always going to be 100% aligned with you? Well, we're all completely different people, so maybe not. And I think, following something, if it feels good, then that's brilliant. You follow that thing. If something comes up and you think, I'm not sure about that, then you can ignore that bit, because what I like people to follow is that, like, kind of tune into that gut instinct, what we, people call it a gut instinct. We do have, they call it a gut brain. We have 3 different brains. We've got so many neurons in our gut as well. It's maybe just picking up on, different senses that we're not picking up on from anything else. But if you want to call it your instinct, your gut feeling, whatever, but just tuning into the body rather than the mind and trying to logically, left brain rationalise stuff, and do what's right for you. Because as long as you're doing what's right for you, you are going to be raising your own vibrations, raising your energy, you're going to be feeling better, so you're going to be acting from a place that feels better. That's going to have a ripple effect on everybody around you. So, I think my top core value, I do identify with my values. My top core value is freedom. It pretty much runs everything in my life and how I see things. And that is for other people as well. That's why I coach people to be free to do whatever they want to do, the way that they want to do it. Everybody, in my opinion, should be able to live the life that they want to live. I say as long as it's not hurting anyone else. That's my own judgment. I don't believe people should be hurting anyone else. But I don't think most people do. It doesn't feel good to be making other people feel bad. Most people just want to do the thing that makes them feel good. And so, following something that makes you feel good, then brilliant. But, as you say, if things come up that don't quite align, if you're trying to force yourself to follow that, you're going to start, it's going to be uncomfortable. And so, why do that? Who says we have to do that? And the person that says we have to do that is the beliefs that we've created ourselves. So change.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. If something makes you feel uncomfortable, or uncomfortably uncomfortable, so to speak, uncomfortable without progress, it makes you feel uneasy, it makes you not like yourself, then that is a sign that maybe those beliefs need to change. Maybe you need to try something else. I think that's kind of a really, really powerful point that you touched on. Yeah.
Because I think it's amazing, like the fact that you've come from being an atheist to following, Christianity. That shows, because being an atheist is a belief, as is following a religion. They're both beliefs, aren't they? Because we can't prove any of it. So, that is just such a shift that shows that you can decide, if you want to choose something.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
That makes you feel good. But that's come from you, reflecting and doing work and starting, and asking lots of questions and having awareness about perhaps where your thoughts and beliefs about atheism came from, and being open to other things. If you had your fixed mindset, then that wouldn't have changed. But you were open to that, and now you've decided to choose something that feels good to you, which is fantastic.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. That's kind of what I've experienced. Like, one of the main reasons is, because it felt right for me. It felt like the right step to take, the right direction to go. And also, I think one of the most powerful kind of techniques as such that I use to try and make that shift happen, to try and, promote shifts generally in my life, is to actually just ask questions about, to yourself, about your beliefs, to other people who share these beliefs. And I do that to this day with religion, with my business, with anything that I do. And I think asking questions is just such a powerful method you can use to try and change your life, to understand the truth behind things. And I think the important thing is to not ask questions with the intent of trying to trip someone up. Ask them with the intent of genuinely trying to learn the answer to the question. And I think that's kind of a big obstacle that a lot of people face. I don't know if you've experienced this, but they will ask questions with the intent of tripping them up so that they can seem like the person who's right. Whereas questions aren't designed to try and make people wrong. Questions are designed to try and find the truth. Surely that's like the whole purpose of a question.
Yeah, and I see those questions that you're talking about where people try and trip people up. I just stay away from that. Like, I'm not interested in that, and I won't engage in those kind of conversations because there's no point. Because if somebody feels that way, then I'm unlikely to open up that fixed way of thinking. And it's not my job to, it's for me to make somebody do that. That's me projecting onto them as well, saying you should have an open mindset. Well, not if they don't want to. If somebody wants to be fixed about it, that's fine. It's just I don't choose to engage in that. My whole job as a coach is to ask questions. I think, Jordan, you're right. It's all about asking questions, but the right questions, good questions that open up different ways of thinking, questions that create, an opportunity to see something from a different perspective. I've got a new client at the moment. He had his second session this week. And when he came to me on his last session, he was completely stuck. He was lost. Every area in his life, he said, was empty. Empty was his word. And he also had, so this was a gift coaching session. Someone had gifted him, they've bought a package of 4 sessions. And so he didn't really, he hadn't chosen to come, which is always a little bit more tricky. He didn't understand what coaching was about. And when he came back this week, we were talking, and I'd asked him one question last week that he just couldn't stop thinking about, and had made him change. It made him realise that everything had to change, because I think I'd said to him, what's the alternative of where he was? And it's like, so if he doesn't do anything about the thing, the issues in his life, his choice is, okay, he can stay here, and if he does things, it's going to be really difficult, and this might happen, and this might happen, and this might happen. But what's the alternative of not taking any action? And that for him was huge. So after this session, he's gone away. So many changes that he's going to put in place. I saw hope in him. Like, his life is going to be completely different. But there was one key question in that. And I never know what the question is going to be, because it's different for every person. But yeah, they are so powerful. What I would say about questions is to ask them, obviously you want to ask open questions. So open questions being, what, where, when, how, that kind of thing. You don't want to yes-no questions. But try to avoid the question why. Because especially if you're asking about yourself, like, negative question, why did I do that? Why did that fail? Why didn't that one work out? Because what our brain does, as I say, it's just takes instructions, it's got a job to do, it will go and do whatever we ask it to do. So if we're asking a why question and it's a negative why question, it will go and find us answers. Well, it failed because you didn't have the right knowledge, you don't know enough, you're not good enough, because you could have done blah blah blah, whatever. If you asked a question, instead of saying why did it fail, for example, if you said, what can I learn from this? Or how could I improve it next time? They feel totally different. Okay, so your brain's going to go off and answer those questions. Okay, how could you improve it next time? Well, you could go and learn a bit more about this. You could make sure you have this in place so, that doesn't happen, blah, blah, blah. It's going to go and find you answers. So just be careful with the why question. I mean, you can ask why questions in a positive way as well, like, why am I so bloody awesome? Well, because da-da-da-da-da. But, so just be careful with the why question. But you can always use a why question, you can turn it into a what or a how type question, and it just...
Yep.
One different word can change where your mind goes with that.
Yeah, so it just prevents those negative cycles that you've been in from potentially then polluting that answer and just reinforcing that negative behaviour.
Don't give your brain the opportunity to do that to you.
Yeah, absolutely. And could an argument be made, obviously we've talked a lot about open-mindedness, could an argument be made that if everybody was open-minded, there wouldn't be much progress in society? Because if everyone's open-minded, if everyone's opinions and beliefs are changing however often, then nobody's going to have this kind of core set value system that they're going to push and push and push for long periods of time. So could an argument be made that it's actually better to have a fixed mindset, to try and find a belief system and push that for a long period of time?
There's an argument that could be made for anything, I'm sure.
Yeah, very true.
Yeah, I mean, there's no opinion that's a wrong opinion, I don't think. I think everybody's entitled to that. And if I said anything otherwise, then I wouldn't be being true to my belief that everyone should be free to think what they want to think. So, yeah. But I'd be interested to discuss that with someone that felt that, because I'm not sure how I could debate that in my head, because I probably don't think that. Even though I might well after this go and think, okay, if I was that, what would I think? But I'd be really interested to have a conversation with somebody who felt that way, to see what come out and to explore their thoughts. Because, maybe there are points. I mean, I think there is absolutely a need for variety of people in this planet to make things happen. When I think about, you think about teams in work environments. I've worked in teams before. I've got my Myers-Briggs personality test, which again is another label. It's something to identify with. Yeah. Yes, I do identify with quite a lot of that. Doesn't mean that I have to be that way, but it feels more natural for me to be. I'm an ENFP, so I'm I'm an ideas person. I'm quite creative. I'm not very good at finishing tasks. To have someone else in this team that is a completer finisher, that likes detail and is very detail orientated, because I can't stand detail. I'm like big picture, nice visions. But to have somebody that understands the detail, well, you need both of those people. You need the idea to make something happen, and the people that are going to, bring the details to make sure that things aren't missed. So I think we need a variety of all of that type of thinking, and I think it's that has created the development in the world that we have, because people have had ideas, but there's also been people that have pushed through with them. I think it's fascinating. I'm not sure I'd even get to a conclusion on that question.
Yeah, that's fair enough. Yeah, it's one of those things that, because I'm a big fan, like personally, I will kind of have mini debates in my head, almost like two sides of me, like debating it on a topic, but you're not going to be able to get that same experience as if you were debating somebody who genuinely strongly believes the opposition, and kind of have that back and forth. And it's interesting you mentioned as well about the sort of 16 personalities. Like, yes, that is obviously, again, another label. But, yeah, you don't want, like, let's use 16 personalities as an example. You don't necessarily want to NFPs dating or in a business relationship or even being friends, because at the end of the day, like, if you look at, you know, the sort of personality traits and where one personality trait might be lacking in certain skills or certain values, there's another trait that actually then picks that slack up. So, for example, like NPs, generally speaking, not all of them, but generally speaking, obviously a little bit more, they kind of work in the moment. They don't necessarily have like a long structured schedule that they work to, whereas you may need to then date or work in a team with or be friends with somebody who actually then does focus more on the schedule, the routine side of it, so you can both kind of complement one another's weaknesses with your strengths.
Yes, yes, although I would counter that, you know, that's for an ideal thing, but actually from an energetic place, if you're with somebody that matches your vibration, that is going to keep your vibration, you know, higher. And like, life's a little bit magic. Like, it doesn't all fit to because X it means Y. Like, it's just quite magical. And there are, you know, yes, there are certain things that means things work better, but if you're in that state of flow and if you're in touch with your energy, then it kind of doesn't matter, because you can allow the universe to do that stuff for you. Like, if you're in alignment and you have, you know, high vibrations, it will attract that stuff, because you naturally attract vibrations that are similar to yourself. Like, you'll find, so it, like, as an example, people that are in a very low place, you know, are depressed or angry or resentful or bitter or sad, or they're vibrating very low frequencies, they will find it very hard to be around someone that's really positive and happy and energetic and high and all of that, because the frequencies just don't match. And so you'll find that naturally, like if you were in a relationship with someone or a business partnership or something like that, it would break away anyway, because those energies just aren't a match. Whereas if you are, you know, someone else on that low energy, you know, if you think when you're getting with your friend and you're, you know, a couple of people, just imagine, you know, women slating everyone else at the school playground, that's, you know, that kind of what's the word I'm looking for, escalates each other, because it's like a nice match. I can't be around that. I don't think people like, I know that I used to be, you know, some people find me too bubbly. Well, I don't want to stop being happy, but I can stop being around you. And then, you know, you'll meet someone that's like, oh, da, 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 and you've got that high energy around each other, and it naturally works, or it naturally repels. And so I think, yes, maybe those people are of a similar personality or a matching personality or different, or maybe it's just something completely different, but it's the energy within us and the universe doing that thing. So
in that case, then, you almost believe that similarities then attract, in terms of like energy, for example, you believe that similarities could be a better match rather than the opposites attract, old adage?
From what I've just said, I would probably say yes, although I wonder, so I have not explored this before, but I wonder if it's, so for example, people could be quite different in their, you know, so for example, those 16 personality types, but if their energy is calm, like I know people, they're a nice calm couple, you know, or business partners. I'm trying to think if I know people completely different, because general people that are just popping into my mind at the moment, they're probably of a similar energy, even though they do quite different things. So their personalities might be quite different, but the feeling and the vibe that they have are similar. So I wonder if it's that. So, for example, when I spoke about my ex-husband, morally we were very similar, and we were very kind people, and liked other people, and I would say our energy was in alignment quite a lot of the time. But it was other elements that made us not work in the end. And to be honest, yeah, I don't know about that. But, and then I think of who I'm with now, we're very similar, and I think that makes that work. And I can see where we're maybe too similar in some things. For example, we're not naturally tidy people, and or into the the detail and the cleaning and all that kind of stuff. So we have to make compromises there to try and make that work. But the relationship is, there's no drama, there's no arguments or bickering or anything like that. I mean, it's just lovely and relaxed, but then we're both quite relaxed people. Whereas, I can think of other people that like the drama and that actually enjoy, you'll hear some people say, I know, it's healthy to have arguments. Maybe it is for your relationship because it's quite fiery. That's cool. I don't want to be in that kind of relationship. But...
yeah.
So yeah, I'd say maybe it's more energy, but it doesn't necessarily mean that people are in the same identity.
Yeah, absolutely. So you could be polar opposites in terms of your identity, in terms of the way you look at the world and the things you like, but then the energy, in fact, the way you look at the world would obviously then be within energy, surely, wouldn't it? So yeah, as long as your energy kind of matches, because I suppose if you look at it in terms of introverts and extroverts, while they can work out in relationships, I find that if you've got somebody who's massively extroverted, take me for example, I'm very, very, very extroverted. If I was to date somebody who was just totally introverted and just did not want to go out in social situations, that wouldn't really work well for me, because I then wouldn't be able to do what I enjoy most, which is talking to people with my partner, whether it is actually business or romantic. I wouldn't be able to do that. So there's kind of that disconnect of, they just want to spend time reading a book, which is fine, and I want to go out and then talk to 1,000 people in a night at a social event, and again, that's also fine. It's just they're not quite compatible.
Yeah, and my experience is the same. I'm quite extroverted. I get my energy being around people, and the people that I've been with are similar. However, I do have a couple that I've thought about other friends, and I'm like, yeah, they're kind of similar people. I have friends who are married, who one of them is very, very introverted and one of them is very, very extroverted, and they work. So I think it's, but then they have a similar outlook on life, but that part is so, it's like two ends of the extremes. So it's fascinating to know what is it, what is the thing. I don't know that anyone knows or can know. I don't know. What is that key thing that keeps people, in a happy relationship? If it's not being in different boxes, so you've got the opposites attract, and if it's not, okay, you've got to be, of a similar energy. What is the thing? I don't know.
Yeah, it's very interesting, and I think the issue I take with phrases like opposites attract is that it's such a one-size-fits-all statement, and it just assumes that if you're an opposite in whatever kind of regard, you're going to attract, you're going to have a successful relationship. And the truth is, like we've just discussed, is that for the most part, my belief was that if you've got a really extroverted member of a couple and then a really introverted, it wouldn't work. But then you've just given an example of a couple that actually that works quite well.
And they've been together for 30 years, so it's not like a,
There you go then.
Yeah.
They've been together 30 years, assuming that they've then got a successful marriage off the back of that. So it's kind of, well, actually, maybe there isn't a one-size-fits-all. Maybe the thing that keeps one couple together or one business partnership together, even if the people within those relationships are seemingly similar, it's not the same within two different couples. something different entirely that keeps them together, which in this case may then be energy in some form or another.
Maybe it's their own beliefs about what makes a relationship work.
That is very true, because if you have that shared value system, then you're both working towards a relationship that meets those values, those beliefs.
Yeah, so like if if they're believing the same thing about it, then, or maybe not the same thing about it, but yeah, if, someone's belief is, when you're married and that's it, you stay, you fight all the battles, you make it work. A lot of people would say that about having, you stay together for the children. I'm going to stay together until they're, at least whatever, because you do that. Maybe they stay together for that. Maybe people's values are, or beliefs are, our love will get us through anything. Like, maybe if they've got similar beliefs around what keeps a relationship strong or, unified, then that's the thing that keeps them together. If I am honest, and again, about me and my ex-husband, as I say, we, no one had done anything wrong, we just sort of grew apart. Because he was a very, steady, safe man, he probably would have stayed in that relationship even though we were both unhappy. But my belief was, if, to be the best person for my children, to be the best, I want more, I need to be my best, and I want more for me, I want more for him. If we were in our 80s, then fine, but, I was in my 30s, he was in his 40s, and I just thought there was more out of life. Our beliefs were different about that. So, if my belief had also been, we stay, we work it out, and like we did, obviously we tried. I went to counselling, we went to couples counselling, but nothing was changing enough. And so I did have to make that decision in the end because I wanted best for both of us. Whereas his belief probably would have been, ignore it. Let's not communicate about that. And just put my head down and get on with it. So, yeah, if we'd have seen things the same, then maybe things would be different. I don't know.
Yeah, absolutely. That's actually a really, really interesting point, to be fair. And I think we can even take it one step further. Maybe it's not just beliefs about why couples stay together, but it's actually a belief about why you get into a relationship in the first place. And if you have that shared belief of why you get into a relationship in the first place, what the whole point of a relationship is, which obviously then does tie into the reason you stay together, if you share that value, that belief system, then that can be the reason that you, first of all, find somebody attractive and want to get into a relationship with them, and then secondly, continue staying in that relationship like we've just talked about.
Yeah, exactly. I think the values thing is key. Like I said, with my first, we were together for 14 years. We had very similar, as I say, kind of values about things and morals and energy and that kind of thing. My partner now, we've got very similar vision and morals, so I think that is probably key, with the exception of people that, initial just chemistry attraction thing. I think those things have got to be aligned, whether that's an energy match, whether that's a values match, whether that's a, there's got to be something, hasn't there, that makes you both want to commit when stuff does come up and get tough, because there's always going to be life events that are thrown your way, and if you are approaching them from a similar place, I think that's probably what keeps it a smoother journey. Doesn't mean that it, is if you're approaching it from different events, it doesn't mean that that's going to be the thing that breaks up a relationship. It just might mean that it's not quite as plain sailing, because you're going to have to communicate those things, you're going to have to compromise those things, aren't you?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think a really important point that you just sort of touched on is how people do change and adapt over time, and how that can lead to discord in terms of the amount of the values you share, the beliefs you share, the way you look at the world. It can change even if you don't intend it to. So, for example, like with you and your ex-husband, presumably when you got together and for the first however many years of the relationship / marriage, obviously you had that shared belief system, you had that shared values, maybe you were matching energy as well, like you said. But over time, as people do naturally change with their experiences, with their kind of just belief systems adapting generally, that can then create some sort of kind of, contrast in those values, in those belief systems. And that's just a natural part of life, I think, for most people.
Yeah, absolutely, because people do change. we had 2 children, they were close together, I had postnatal depression with both of them, and so, you know, when we were kind of, you know, coming to the end of our marriage and we were going to counselling and stuff, he was like, you've changed. I was like, well, of course I've changed. Like, I'm much older than I was, so I'm going to have changed anyway. I've had depression. Like, things change you, but it doesn't mean that I've changed, as in, you know, who I am, but I guess my priorities have changed. And, you know, I suppose it's similar for you. If you were, you know, perhaps in a relationship with someone else who was a very strong atheist, and now you've decided that actually Christianity is for you, that might cause big problems. It might not, if they're really open and like, okay, cool. But you never know where that's going to go, and I think you're right, you know, people do change over time, and so maybe it's the changes within an individual as opposed to changing as a couple that make the relationships, you know, can those things evolve together? So it is really interesting, like, what is the key thing? Because people, like you say, they're always going to change. We're naturally changing whether we want to or not. We're changing, you know, even the people that don't want to change, you are evolving as life goes on. So what is the thing?
That is really powerful.
Really interesting. Don't have an answer.
Yeah, well, it's one of those things, there's so many different elements to consider, there's so much, like, the only way to really do it would be to look at every couple in history and just objectively say, you know, what is making this couple work, but that's impossible to do, obviously, unless you're, you know, God, if you believe in a God. So yeah, that is such a big question. It's probably unfair for me to ask you, but I think you gave a really wonderful answer, so thank you for that.
You're welcome.
So that actually pretty much covers all of my questions. Did you have anything else that you actually wanted to talk about or bring up before we head off?
No, I don't think so. I think I didn't have any kind of plans coming to the podcast. I know how these go, you know, you just get into a conversation and go somewhere. So I've really enjoyed the conversation. So thank you.
Yeah, me too. It's been absolutely fantastic. Definitely thought-provoking, so I'm sure you'll be getting a ton of messages from me with just new ideas that I've sort of come up with after the conversation. And for everybody watching, listening, is there anywhere they can reach you on social media to add you, get in touch with you if they want to?
Yeah, so I'm on all the social medias, apart from Twitter. So I'm Zoe Knight Coaching. So Zoe Knight Coaching on Facebook, I've got a page. Zoe Knight Coaching on Instagram and LinkedIn. The best place to get me at the moment, though, I've got a Facebook group, which is the Creative Business Hive. That's for, you know, this for anyone really, creative business owners, but business owners or anyone that just wants to get value, because I talk in there about, you know, mindset stuff, some of the stuff we talked about today, you know, tips and tools and techniques to manage things. But I also have guest experts in there talking about, you know, ways to help you improve and build and grow your business as well. So there's a nice mix in there. It's really engaged and lovely. So if you want to come and interact with me, my group is the best place to do that.
Sounds absolutely fantastic, and I'll put all of your contact information, the group, the social media, in the description for the video and of course the audio. So again, thank you so much for coming on today, Zoe. It's been an absolute pleasure talking to you, and hopefully we can have you on again at some point in the future.
That'll be wonderful. Thanks, Jordan. It's been great.
Thank you.
Don't fuck with them. Don't fuck with them.